Elon Musk's buyout of Twitter is at risk because he may have found potential fraud, and now he's being accused of breaking his non-disclosure agreement by revealing Twitter does their bot audit for the entirety of the platform by checking just 100 users. Now, this story gets crazy, ladies and gentlemen, and I am of the opinion that Elon Musk has discovered fraud at Twitter. I'm not saying Twitter has committed fraud. I'm saying when I look at it, everything I see seems like Twitter is defrauding advertisers and shareholders. So there's a lot to break down. Elon Musk said last week he was putting the Twitter deal on hold because he wanted an assessment of the bots and spam accounts. Now, this matters. If Twitter is saying, here's what we're worth because here's what we can deliver, and it turns out what they can deliver is not the same as what they report, because it's spam and bot accounts, well, then they're not really worth what they say they're worth or what shareholders think they're worth. And then you end up with Elon Musk overpaying for a broken platform. Now, what if that was really it? Twitter's only alive as a platform because we use it, because political junkies and journalists are on the platform, but we're a teeny tiny portion of the population. Now, it's true. I think only around 20% of the country actually has an account, and only around, I think, 20% of that group actually uses Twitter, which means it's something like, 2% of the country are active users? Maybe Twitter doesn't have any real users. Maybe it's all spam bots. But here's what happens. Twitter, behind the scenes, checks 100 accounts and says, we think these are bots. Elon says, I'm going to do a random sampling of 100 accounts. And he gets flack for it. People say, 100 accounts? That's not enough. You can't audit spam bots from 100 accounts. And Elon goes, I just said that because that's what Twitter was doing. Twitter comes out and says, you broke your non-disclosure agreement. Something fishy is going on. I think Elon found fraud. Parag Agrawal, the CEO, comes out with this huge thread, panicked, like, you have to understand, like, this is how spam works and how bots work. And uh-oh. Could it be that Twitter was selling advertisements to people off fake numbers? Yes. We know that Twitter incorrectly, I'm being generous here, incorrectly reported their total user numbers on more than one occasion. But even left-leaning The Verge said, how is that possible? The first time you make the mistake, we get it, but you did the same thing twice? Perhaps, my friends, it is all intentional that Twitter is a dirty company doing dirty things to make money and convince advertisers they're more valuable than they really are so they can oversell ads, make money, and fund their manipulation machine. Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, they get into it over the algorithm. Jack says the algorithm wasn't intended to manipulate. Sure, whatever you want to say, I don't care about your intentions. I care about what the machine you built does. Well, I invented dynamite, but I didn't intend to kill people with it, says the merchant of death, Alfred Nobel. And so he creates the Nobel Prize because he didn't want to go down in history as the guy who was the merchant of death. The story there is his obituary was accidentally published before he died. He read it and said, that's what they think of me? He wasn't trying to make something to blow people up with, but dynamite was something pretty powerful. Well, it may be that Twitter didn't intend to manipulate. I don't care. You did it. Your left-wing policies combined with a left-wing algorithm or with a biased algorithm creates manipulation. I think Elon Musk is playing 4D chess, and a lot of people strangely act like he doesn't know what he's doing, but I think he knows what he's doing. And I think he's exposing Twitter. Well, let's go through what happened today and expose what's happening with Twitter. Because I think, again, I'll say it, I think we may be seeing fraud getting uncovered. Now, I'm not saying I have definitive evidence. I'm saying what we see so far in the news says to me fraud. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work. As a member, you will get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast. You'll be supporting our journalists, and we use Rumble infrastructure so we can stay away from Amazon and Silicon Valley's big tech companies. If you agree with that message of building separate infrastructure so that we can't get censored, Go to timcast.com, become a member, and help support our work. But don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. We've got many stories to break down. Elon Musk claims bot check broke NDA. Well, let's start with this from the Daily Mail. The bots are angry at being counted. Elon Musk says his team will do a random sample of 100 Twitter followers to see how many are bots as he weighs proceeding with $44 billion takeover, and exclusive photos show him hours before pausing the deal. Now, this story is from the 13th, but it's the context as to how the whole bot thing begins. Tesla CEO Elon Musk and his team are preparing their own audit of 100 Twitter followers to check how many are bots and spam accounts. Earlier, citing a week-old regulatory filing from Twitter, Musk claimed he wanted to pause the deal to verify that false or spam accounts represented fewer than 5% of the company's 229 million users during the first quarter. Let's slow down. Now, that was during their first quarter. Something interesting happens. In that week that Elon Musk announces he's buying as the news breaks that he's buying the platform, we see a wave of new followers for people on the right, and we see people like the red-headed libertarian get unbanned. Many other smaller users saying my account was just unbanned for some reason. I don't know why. So why was Twitter unbanning so many right-leaning accounts or right-wing accounts? I don't know. At the same time, left-leaning accounts and celebrities lost hundreds of thousands of followers. How does that happen? Twitter claims it's organic. It's all organic, they say. People were just leaving the platform and conservatives were joining the platform, I suppose. But that makes no sense. We know people had their accounts restored. It seems like Twitter was fudging the numbers. Now, that was in quarter two because the announcement came in the second quarter. In the first quarter, they say 5% of their users were spam bots. Okay, some have said to me, Tim, no, you're wrong. It couldn't be fraud. Or, well, in this context, they couldn't be manipulating the followers because the numbers, the 5% are from the first quarter. Yes, hold on there a minute. In the first quarter, they can change the data after the fact and claim all these users are right here and they've been here the whole time, right? They can ban them and say, oh yeah, look. If they're fudging the data, they're fudging the data. On Friday, Musk followed up saying, to find out, my team will do a random sample of 100 followers of Twitter. He later joked saying the bots are angry at being counted. Twitter's official account has 61.7 million followers, meaning Musk has a large group to choose from. If Twitter's reporting is accurate, that would mean that there are fewer than 11.4 million fake accounts that are targeted for ads. Musk has 92.4 million Twitter followers. Musk has been attending a private dinner party in Beverly Hills just hours before hitting pause on his Twitter deal, and you can see him on his phone, probably tweeting, having a good time. Haha, that's very funny. Some people are arguing this is a ploy by Elon to lower the price. So here's what happens. Elon Musk gets accused of trying to back out of the deal because 100 followers is not nearly enough to do an audit of the entirety of the website, right? Well, right, it's not. Here's what happens. According to the New York Post, Elon Musk on Saturday tweeted that Twitter's legal team accused him of violating a non-disclosure agreement by revealing that the sample size for the social media platform's checks on automated users was just 100 accounts. Twitter legal just called to complain that I violated their NDA by revealing the bot check sample size is 100. That actually happened. Musk on Friday tweeted the deal was on hold. Take a look. Musk said any sensible random sampling process is fine. If many people independently get similar results for a percentage of fake, spam, duplicate accounts, that will be telling. I picked 100 as the sample size number because that is what Twitter uses to calculate their 5% spam, fake spam, or duplicate. Elon Musk was right to use the same number. He's trying to see if he can reproduce the results. Elon can take 100 random users 100 times, meaning he's getting a very large group, and then he can calculate the average percentage to see what he gets. Twitter is claiming he should not have revealed that number. Now, of course, people on the left are saying Elon Musk is trying to bow out of the deal. Twitter's CEOs, according to The Verge, and Elon Musk are beefing over bot accounts. This story from today. Parag Agrawal claims internal estimates are actually well below the reported 5%. I don't buy it. I think that they were deleting users. I don't buy it. Take a look from The Guardian. Left-leaning users leave Twitter in protest at Musk Takeover. I don't believe it. Why would Katy Perry have 200,000 progressives who are like, I'm leaving this platform? She didn't even tweet anyway. Take a look at this. The Washington Post. Musk doesn't own Twitter yet, but conservatives are racking up followers. I'll tell you what I think. I think you can see it right here. Something happened. Strange, isn't it? Twitter announced sale to Elon Musk on April 25th. From the 24th to the 25th, there is a small spike between conservative users and a small drop-off between progressive users. Now, of course, behind the scenes, we knew this was, like, people knew this was coming, but we didn't know when. Seems like Twitter did. When the sale was announced, there was an explosion, and you can see it in all these different accounts. I gained 100,000 followers, not on the Monday the announcement was made, but the next day. I've maintained that's strange. It makes no sense. If conservatives were joining the platform to gloat, they would have joined on that Monday morning when the news was coming out, the deal was about to be finalized, not a day later. And progressives would have left a long time ago, not a day later. You can see the progressives were gaining followers a little bit. Republicans were gaining a little bit. Then it's announced, and all of a sudden, all these Democrats just leave. Maybe, but I really don't buy it. Well, let's take a look at where we're at. We'll come to the Elon Musk as an algorithm argument, but I'll come to that in a second. Parag Agrawal made a very large thread about spam bots that I think is BS. He says, let's talk about spam. Let's do so with the benefit of data, facts, and context. First, let me state the obvious. Spam harms the experience for real people on Twitter, and therefore can harm our business. As such, we are strongly incentivized to detect and remove as much spam as we possibly can, every single day. Anyone who suggests otherwise is just wrong. Next, spam isn't just binary, human, not human. The most advanced spam campaigns use combinations of coordinated humans and automation. They also compromise real accounts and then use them to advance their campaign. So they are sophisticated and hard to catch. Some final context. Fighting spam is incredibly dynamic. The adversaries, their goals and tactics evolve constantly, often in response to our work. You can't build a set of rules to detect spam today and hope they will still work tomorrow. They will not. We suspend over 500,000 spam accounts every day, usually before any of you even see them on Twitter. We also lock millions of accounts each week that we suspect may be spam, if they can't pass human verification challenges, CAPTCHAs, phone verification, etc. The hard challenge is that many accounts which look fake superficially are actually real people. And some of the spam accounts, which are actually the most dangerous and cause the most harm to our users, can look totally legitimate on the surface. Our team updates our system and rules constantly to remove as much spam as possible, without inadvertently suspending real people or adding unnecessary friction for real people when they use Twitter. None of us want to solve a CAPTCHA every time we use Twitter. This is a long one, huh? Now, we know we aren't perfect at catching spam, and so this is why. After all the spam removal I talked about above, we know some still slips through. We measured this internally, and every quarter we have estimated that around 5%, less than 5%, of reported monthly, MDAUs, that daily active users, for the quarter are spam accounts. Our estimate is based on multiple human reviews and replicate of thousands of accounts that are sampled at random, consistently over time from accounts we count as MDAUs. We do this every quarter, and we have been doing this for many years. Each human review is based on Twitter rules that define spam and platform manipulation and use both public and private data. For example, IP addresses, phone numbers, geolocation, client browser signatures, what the account does when it's active to make a determination on each account. The use of private data is particularly important to avoid misclassifying users who are actually real. First name bunch of numbers with no profile pic and odd tweets might seem like a bot or spam to you. But behind the scene, we often see multiple indicators that it's a real person. Our actual internal estimates for the last 4 quarters were all well under 5% based on the methodology outlined above. The error margins on our estimates give us confidence in our public statements each quarter. Unfortunately, we don't believe that this specific estimation can be performed externally, given the critical need to use both public and private information, which we can't share. Externally, it's not even possible to know which accounts are counted as MDAUs on a given day. There are lots of details that are very important underneath this high-level description. We shared an overview of the estimation process with Elon a week ago and look forward to continuing the conversation with him and all of you. Elon Musk responded with the poop emoji. Now, if there was ever an argument that Elon Musk was disparaging Twitter. This is as close as he's gotten, but I still don't think it passes, right? People have said that because he's criticized Twitter externally, he violated his business deal with Twitter, and there he can't buy the platform. It's like, calm down, dude. The deal he had says he can't mention the deal and disparage Twitter at the same time. He can post a poop emoji. Elon responds, so how do advertisers know what they're getting for their money? This is fundamental to the financial health of Twitter. He's right. Elon Musk is correct. Parag is only coming out now and explaining all of this to the public? Hold on. He makes a lot of really good points. I agree with Agrawal. It is hard to track spam because these accounts want to make money by manipulating this platform. So Elon mentions, how do the advertisers know? Unless you tell them and reveal this information. I think something shady is happening. Personally, I'm not saying I have definitive proof. Again, I will stress that. Something doesn't add up when they're like, we can't actually, you can't do a spam. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't. That's what they're saying. It's not even possible to do a There are many services that do fake or bot audits. Now, I've seen a lot of people say this user has X% of fake bots, and it's true. You got to understand, it's not so easy. I think if you do an audit of my account, it says something like 20% are bots. And this is mostly recently. Before the return of all of these right-wing accounts that were unsuspended, my estimate was like, I don't know, maybe like 7%. So something happened where now this other third-party service thinks I personally have more bot accounts. It makes sense. When you have a lot of followers, you have a higher density of bots, not because you bought followers, but because bots follow prominent people to try and seem real. That's what you got to watch out for. Also, many of these external bot checkers don't know. Many people will sign up on Twitter, not tweet anything, follow 100 people and have no followers because that's what they use Twitter for. It doesn't mean they're bots. That's all true. But the idea that you can't do an external audit is insane. He says, we believe the information can, unfortunately, we don't believe it can be formed externally. BS. If you grant access to the API, companies can find a way to figure out who's a bot or not based on posting frequency. Did you know CAPTCHAs, many of them, are BS? They say you should click the image that has the fire hydrants in it. What they really track, not all of them, is your mouse movements because bots have simple linear motions and they're quick. Humans have a bit of randomness in their clicks. It is possible to know if someone's a bot. For that matter, I mean, Twitter theoretically could do like a mouse movement or, something that it shows that internally without spying on you, just shows the mouse movements and they can know if you're on a desktop, if you're a bot or not. And on a mobile phone, they could do similar things. But again, you want to avoid getting too intrusive with someone's personal data. How do the advertisers know? That's the question that leads me to believe fraud. That Twitter knows something is going on. I think Twitter is manipulating people, and I think they're manipulating the users. I think they're manipulating the advertisers. Take a look at this story from Mashable. Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey debated Twitter's algorithm, and Musk was actually right. Interesting. Usually Musk v. Dorsey is a whoever wins, we lose situation, so this was a surprise. They go on to say, I don't care for Mashable's weird opinion. They say Musk, who may or may not buy Twitter soon, did what he always does on Saturday and posted some musings. Among them was a call for Twitter users to change their feeds. Well, let's talk about what Elon said. Elon said, very important to fix your Twitter feed. Tap the home button. Tap the stars on the upper right screen. Select latest tweets. You are being manipulated by the algorithm in ways you don't realize. Easy to switch back and forth to see the difference. I'm not suggesting malice in the algorithm, but rather that it's trying to guess what you might want to read, and in doing so, inadvertently manipulate or amplify your viewpoints without you realizing it's happening. Not to mention potential bugs in the code. Open source is the way to solve both trust and efficacy. We then have the Twitter thread from Parag, but Jack Dorsey chimes in. After Elon said you're being manipulated, Jack Dorsey says it was designed simply to save you time when you are away from an app or a while. Poll to refresh goes back to reverse chronological as well. I don't believe you, Jack. there have been many circumstances where I've gone on my computer and all of a sudden I'm back on the algorithmic feed and I have to switch back. And I'm like, how did that happen? On my phone too. Hassan Soilemez, I'm pronouncing that wrong, forgive me, says, it was definitely designed for manipulation. If you had good intentions, you wouldn't have dictated this design to us. Then Elon's tweet would be like this. Hey, if you want to save your time, tap home, tap the stars on the upper right of the screen and select home tweets. The point is, it defaults to an algorithmic feed. If they wanted to save time for people, they would have just made it so you could opt into it, not that's default. Jack responds, no, it wasn't designed to manipulate. It was designed to catch you up and work off what you engage with. That can have unintended consequences, though, which is why one should be able to choose if they use an algorithm or not, and which one. Simple solution to all of this. Hassan Soilemez says, it is an imposition that you have to force us to use the algo to decide whether or not to use the algo. How do these algorithms decide what we engage with? Since the design changed, the interactions have decreased and our followers can't see our tweets. Aren't you aware of that? Jack Dorsey says, they simply try to put the tweets that you are most likely to engage with at the top. That's it. Predictive based on what you like, retweet, reply to, search for, pause, etc. It's meant to be a convenience, nothing more. Again, most important is being able to turn it off. Now, I agree with that. The only thing is it defaults. Okay, here's how it works. This is a radicalization engine. There was a guy who gave a presentation a while ago called the filter bubble. If you follow 100 people and you mostly interact with one group of people because that's who you feel like interacting with, the algorithm will start to eliminate the other side. You won't see it because you don't interact with it. So let's say I follow CNN, the New York Times, Hassan Piker, and Steven Crowder. Okay. CNN, will I interact with? No. I follow them to see what they're talking about, not to have a conversation with a brand account. So they're gone. The New York Times, I'm not good for the same reason as CNN. I'm not going to. Steven Crowder. Okay. Crowder, maybe. He'll tweet something and I'll add to it. But then we have a left-wing progressive commentator, much more likely to engage and counter the argument. If I'm engaging with people because I don't agree with them and then Twitter starts feeding me nothing but that, it is a radicalization machine. Now, YouTube has been accused of having a rabbit hole. There is a difference, but there are similarities. YouTube does have the ability to radicalize, but it's not that big of an issue. What was argued 4 years ago was that YouTube recommends to you content you've already watched. So if you watch a video on immigration, it's going to send you more and more of this, and thus you'll become a far-right bigot. What we actually saw in the data is that YouTube was recommending more left-wing content because left-wing content was so popular. However, let me say for YouTube, there's no direct share function. You can't, I don't follow you as an individual, I follow channels. You follow my channel. If you post something, I don't see what you posted. I have to follow you. With Twitter, there's retweets, meaning you can be fed content rapidly like that. Someone makes a statement. It goes viral. Everybody shares it. Everybody sees it. On YouTube, there's no retweet. It doesn't exist. We don't follow that hundreds to thousands of people. We follow the specific channels, and we only get the content from those channels if we get them at all. Additionally, if I interact with left-wing arguments more so than right-wing arguments, because I'm arguing with them, then Twitter will recommend more of the same, right? And I'll argue more. On YouTube, if I watch a video that says immigration, breaking news, YouTube might recommend a left-wing perspective next because these videos could be long. So when they say that YouTube's radicalizing, there are some issues with the algorithm, period, no matter what you're using, but it's Facebook and Twitter where they feed you all of this stuff. You are being manipulated. Twitter has a left-wing bias among their staff. So they've created left-wing biased rules and terms. Then they create an algorithm which feeds upon those, and you have a left-wing biased algorithm. Jack then says it wasn't designed to manipulate. No, but it was built, and it does manipulate. Let me tell you why I think it does. We'll wrap up all of these thoughts and get serious for a second. I mean, we've been serious. Twitter is the public town square. It's where news breaks. It's where articles are written. Perhaps that shouldn't be the case, but it is the case. They manipulate us. They ban people. They tell us what we can't talk about. They then say it was all an accident every single time. Here's what's happening now. So to wrap things up, if Elon Musk is able to gain Twitter, take it, buy it, we might restore these conversations. Let me show you this from Newsweek. MAGA candidates attack McConnell over abhorrent $40 billion Ukraine bill. There it is. Right now, Biden is sending hundreds of ground forces into Somalia. Why? Donald Trump withdrew forces from Somalia, and now Biden is sending them back. MAGA candidates, the people who are being banned for saying things like learn to code, the people who are reinstated in large numbers for some reason, all of a sudden there are appeals, are the people saying no war. So is that it? Right now, take a look at this from Glenn Greenwald. He says, total amount U.S. has allocated to war in Ukraine after 10 weeks, $54 billion. The average annual amount the U.S. spent in Afghanistan was $46 billion. Top Russian military budget for the entire year, $69 billion. Projected U.S. expenditure on war in Ukraine for 1 year, $554 billion. These are bad things. I think these are bad things. But if you deviate, you'll be banned. If you were a Trump supporter, you were more likely to be banned. The left lies. It's not true. Oh, they're banning us. No, they aren't. Some people on the left who are anti-war got banned. And that's about who got banned. That's it. You've got people who post overt calls for violence. You have Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, saying it's a call to arms. We have to fight and we have to win. Alex Jones said, I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he said something similar. And he got banned and she didn't. Because Twitter is biased. I hope Elon Musk acquires the platform. I hope Elon Musk takes Twitter for all it's worth, fixes the problems. I don't know if it will actually happen. Perhaps Elon's plan this whole time was to expose the fraud. Here's the way I put it on IRL, on Timcast IRL. Whenever you tweet, like not whenever, but typically, you'll see this fake Elon Musk account that says, like, buy this crypto scam. I wonder if Elon got tired of his face being used for these scams and for Twitter not banning these. They're obviously bots. They're not verified. And you can see them and Twitter just go delete. They don't do it. So I wonder if he was like, okay, I'm going to expose the bot problem. He's talked about the bot problem quite a bit. He says he's going to buy the company. Now it's on hold because of the bot problem. Maybe Elon loses $1 billion and maybe he doesn't care. How much is too much money? Maybe he just wanted to expose the bot problem on Twitter. And here we are. I think they're being disingenuous. I think Twitter overtly manipulates, and many of the people there may not be conscious of it. Jack Dorsey may not be conscious of it, but it's happening. And it's remarkable to me that even after the conversation I had with him and the subsequent conversations over Twitter, he hasn't gotten the big picture yet. He hasn't understood. That's why I just don't believe him. I think Jack Dorsey is a liar. I think he's playing this part. Now he left the company and he's saying all of these things, endearing himself to the right. Yet when he was there, none of this. And maybe it's always got contracts and all that stuff. So what? Then say nothing. But Jack has repeatedly been on the wrong side of this. Why should I take his word for it? I think Twitter wanted to maintain a healthy conversation. So they banned people they thought were toxic and fluffed up with fake accounts the people they thought were appropriate or that they liked. And because they're in San Francisco and they have a left-wing bias, that's what the rules did. You can't come to me and tell me that Jack Dorsey's been redeemed or that he's waking up, because he had every opportunity and he heard every single argument. He knew exactly what was going on. And only now is he coming out and saying something about it. So I don't buy it. Of course, when it comes to the weird goings-on, the media will try to downplay it. They say conservatives are racking up followers. Cumulative change in Twitter followers for the 20 Republican and Democratic congresspeople, the biggest shift. What about Barack Obama? They don't include him. What about Katy Perry? They don't include her. I think she lost 200,000 followers. Where is it? There's a reason why people on the left didn't lose as many as people on the right. because it is a culture war, and Republican and Democrat is not what matters. Now, the Washington Post, I suppose, needed a metric by which to determine a control, but this is an incomplete picture. You need to look at right-wing personalities, libertarian personalities, all being restored and unlocked, and look at liberal personalities losing followers. I think they're trying to pad their numbers. I think if you try and go back to the first quarter and look at their actual audit numbers, they're gonna have the numbers flubbed. People are like, the filing they sent in a week after the weird burst in followers and burst in disappearances of followers. They'll say that was quarter two, doesn't count. It's like they published a week later. For all you know, they manipulated the numbers and then lied about it. If they're willing to manipulate the numbers, why would they not be willing to lie about it? Twitter's important. On Twitter, people are calling for war, and war is happening. And we don't want that. Those of us that are anti-war and want the infrastructure spent on the United States. I wonder why it is that in 1 year, they're looking at half $1 trillion for Ukraine. Can we have healthcare? No. Shout out to all my good conservative friends. Would you be happy with them not spending the $500 billion at all? If they were going to spend it anyway, would you prefer it be diverted to giving you healthcare? I don't like government-run programs for the most part, because I think the problem we have is that we never get rid of them. We never purge them when they go bad. A business could fail, not a government program, but I do like communal programs. I hate to say government, but this idea of a universal basic healthcare to me makes a lot of sense. That's why we need to have these conversations. That's why the censorship is so dangerous. How do we discuss things when we are getting banned for discussing them, and the end result is going to be civil war? Do you remember what I said to Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gadde when I went on the podcast with Joe Rogan? I said, if you don't stop this, people are going to be killing each other. I'm getting a van down by the river. It's funny. I said in 2019, that it was getting bad. A year later, we're in lockdown. I moved out to West Virginia. I said, I'm getting out of here. The most violent riots we'd seen in 50 years. People being shot and killed in the streets. Look, I was being a little hyperbolic, talking about getting a van down by the river. I did build the van. We used it to drive around and film stuff and things like that. But mostly, I used it to record while being on the road. I wasn't wrong. Twitter wasn't the only reason this stuff was happening. Twitter was just a large reason for the hyperpolarization. And Jack knows and didn't do anything about it. Jack says he knows about these things. That's why I don't believe him. Maybe he'd be willing to have a conversation with me, but a lot of people they don't want to stand next to the heat if they don't have to. This is why so many news organizations do softball interviews. They want access. Don't care. If you're not going to come and sit down and have a conversation with me, you don't owe me that. Jack Dorsey's big. He's a billionaire. Elon Musk, the same thing. I would love to have a conversation with them because I want to have a conversation with them. They don't owe me that. But I want to hear real answers to what's going on. Jack, you talked about fixing these problems. Why did you not do it? You heard me say it. Did you investigate in any capacity? If you did, what did you find? When I said the censorship would lead to hyperpolarization, and it's only continued to do so, did you just think, Tim's wrong, I'm going to ignore him? That's fine if you did. I am no prophet. But I want to ask, follow up. Remember I said that? What did you do after I brought it up? Did you say, that's crazy, it'll never happen? Do you think that was wrong now? I'd love to have Elon and Jack Dorsey on the show, but we'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. tonight over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. We are having a progressive podcaster on the show. And I imagine it's going to be like an 8-hour long argument. I don't approach these things to argue or debate with people, but it turns into it because I feel strongly about certain things. But let's see what we can accomplish in this conversation because I have questions that I don't think they can answer. Next segment will be at 8 p.m. tonight. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.